listening to Game On DC, your home for local gaming and esports news in the DMV. Find the show on social media at Game On DC and by using the hashtag GoDC. Without further ado, here are your hosts, John and Joey.
What's up? What's up, DMV? I think first time I sound like my microphone was muted. What is up, DMV? Welcome to Game On DC, the show dedicated to you, the gamers and esports fanatics, right here in the East Coast capital of esports. My name is John Fiasco Barham, and I am joined once again by Joey Courtside King McDermott. Joey, what's up, buddy?
Doing well, sir. It's a Monday, and we know how Mondays go around here, but is a Game On DC Monday. We don't have a ton to talk about, to be honest. Like, we had no Overwatch League matches this weekend. We do have some fun things to touch on with that, though, and the Wizards District Gaming team didn't quite do as well as we thought in the turn, but a good showing overall.
Blasphemy. They did fine. They didn't win, which would have been nice, but, you know, can't complain. They were in the Final Four 2 years in a row, so it's pretty good. DMV, if you are not aware of it already, this show is live on Twitch now on Monday nights. So that is the best experience possible. If you're available Monday nights, 8 p.m. on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/OTN Media. Definitely check out the live show. If for whatever reason you can't hit up the live show, we do have a podcast version of Game On DC. It's available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. And if you do listen to the podcast versions, one piece of homework for you, just one small little thing. We do ask you to leave a review and rating on your podcatcher of choice. It's available on more podcatchers than just that. Those are just the main feeds. They do go out to pretty much all of them. So if you are able to leave a review and comment, we do appreciate it. So Joey, with that, I know you said it's going to be a little bit of a light show today, and I 100% agree with that. It is going to be a little bit of a lighter show, just because we only had one team in action. That's going to be the Wizards District Gaming for the Turn Tournament. But first, we're going to start with our Washington Justice segment for the Overwatch League, because they are in that final push, and their situation is a little bit more unique than currently what the WizDG team finds themselves in, being in first place in the entire league. They're pretty set for now. But for our Justice real quick, let's take a look at our overall standings here currently in the league. And the issue right now is they're in fifth place. They're not in a bad spot, but they're not in that spot that makes you as a Justice fan feel really good about where they could possibly be going into the last quarter of the season. The last quarter of the season being the Summer Cup. And Joey, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there right now. I'm a little nervous about it. You know, fifth place, that's kind of right there in the middle of the pack to make it into the playoffs. We're not out of the woods yet. We're literally 2 games out from not possibly being in the playoffs. So it's going to be a very, very, very close fight to the finish line there for the Washington Justice. And then in the Summer Cup, they're bringing hero bands back. I don't want to beat Blizzard up too much because I feel like everyone already knows our opinion on hero bands. But that is something that is coming back, and that has me a little bit nervous where they're currently positioned in the table.
I think there's a lot to touch on here. So the Countdown Cup is coming up, like you mentioned, that final cup of the summer prior to playoffs. That's a big event. So far for the Justice, they barely missed out on the May Melee event, barely missed out on the June Joust event, and that was mainly because of a rocky start. Then they came on pretty strong later on. And then once again, barely missing out, going a best of 5 with the Dallas Fuel and slightly missing out on this most recent cup. So in the end, like, we just continue to push forward. We continue to get very close, but continue to be just shy of our end goal. The Countdown Cup being the next on the radar. This should be one that the Justice have a good shot at. They do have a few tough matches leading up to it, though, like Houston Outlaws is on our schedule for not this upcoming week, but the following week. They're a top team. They're above us in the standing, currently in third. One of the better teams in the league right now as well. A win against them, I'm not going to say guarantees a spot into that cup, but it definitely gives us a good shot of qualifying for the Countdown Cup.
Absolutely. So with the Countdown Cup being the one coming up next, I'm going to go ahead and pull some information up here for us going into it. So first, let's talk a little bit about the hero bands. We haven't had this since the June Joust. They're alternating. June Joust, we saw a lot of issues when it came to the hero bands. I believe it was Sombra, Tracer, Reinhardt, and Zenyatta were the bands in the June Joust. So those heroes will not be touched again. So thumbs up for that. We're not going to see Tracer banned out again. We're not going to see, our boy Decay, Decay and Assassin really, being taken out with 2 very strong champions that were currently in the meta at the time. But I do have to be a little nervous here because my gut feeling telling me the heroes that are going to be banned, and we're going to go and speculate here a little bit. It's definitely not official. They haven't been announced yet, but it's 2 DPS, 1 tank, 1 support. Joey, if I had to speculate here for a DPS, I would probably think an Echo and a McCree would be banned out. A tank, I'm leaning probably towards Winston. And for support, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be Lucio. And if that is true, Justice fans, I apologize. That is terrible. That is not what we want to see in this hero pool ban going in into the Summer Cup. That would be worst case scenario, but my gut feeling is telling me that's exactly what we're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, guys, we were DMing a little bit before this, and John and I just feel the same way about a lot of these. I'm picking McCree and Echo as well. I mean, you look at Assassin, he got hit a little bit with the Sombra pick getting taken out, got hit again. Potentially here, if this does come to fruition and Echo gets taken out. As far as tanks go, I think it's going to be Winston as well. It feels like he's the most used in the meta right now, and it's definitely something that could shake things up here and there. It could potentially be Orisa. I mean, you could throw a Sigma in there as well. He's been getting quite a bit of playtime. But in the end, if they're looking to really make an impact and shake things up, I think it probably will be the Winston coming in there. The one thing I might switch is we haven't seen as much Lucio support. I feel like we've been getting a lot more Baptiste as of late. So if the Overwatch League really wants to hit things as hard as they can, it could be a Baptiste ban coming through as well.
I would almost feel a little bit more comfortable with a Baptiste ban, but my gut feeling just with Lucio's area of healing, and also his ability to speed burst his teammates in a close situation, try to get back to a point to stop a push. I don't know. To me, that has more late game impact than maybe a Baptiste does. Maybe just
for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, just to clarify my position for why Lucio, that would be my main reason why. And we saw a lot of teams utilize that Lucio, especially on assault points, very, very well. So our gut feelings there. Hopefully they pick champion or heroes that nobody plays. That would be great. Maybe a Genji and a Pharah. Maybe, for tank, maybe, you know what? Why not Orisa? Orisa would be a great one that everyone's playing that you can ban. And for healer or support, let's go ahead and just let's pick a random one. Let's go ahead and go with Mercy, because Mercy hasn't been in the comp in forever, it feels like. Even with Echo coming back, she gets picked every now and then. Let's just do that, and let's act like it never really happened, and let's just go about playing some Overwatch.
The one key with, if they do go the Lucio route, I'm not going to say we have an advantage, but I think we do have a slight advantage over some other teams if that ends up being the ban. And that's because we've been playing a lot of Tuba on Brigitte. And when you have Brigitte as an option available, I think Tuba can come in, fill some of that AoE healing role here and there. But also, he was just a big damage dealer. He had some nice boops off of maps. He was able to really get into the mix. His rally was used effectively. So in the end, I think we could be one of the quicker teams to adapt to that potential support ban.
And Joey, you led right into it. We're going to touch on some keys for this Justice team going into the final quarter of the season, going into the Summer Cup. Just because there is there's a lot riding on the line here, and if what we saw in the June joust is any indication of what we may see here in the first part of the Summer Cup, our first week might be a little rough. So let's go ahead and take a look at our path to playoffs, is what we're going to call this. Joey, first off, we're going to start with escort maps. And, if any of you have tuned into the co-stream that Joey and I do for the Justice, we talk about this quite a bit, mainly because it is so absolutely freaking terrifying. And the reason behind it is that for whatever reason, this Justice team absolutely struggles on escort maps, and no one really has an answer as to why. On paper, this team should definitely not struggle on escort maps, and they are. We're seeing Junkertown. They're not even be able to get to the first point, checkpoint on the push. Hybrid maps like Route 66. Yeah, it might be. No, I'm sorry, not Route 66. Hollywood. Even though their last play on Hollywood, they were able to complete it in the first go, there were still a lot of struggles. There's a lot of overtime. There's a lot of things that just seemed like it took a little too long to accomplish. Capturing the point to start that initial push, making it through the first checkpoint to the studio. Then once they got into the studio, it just seemed like it took forever. But they were able to complete it. The second go around had a lot of issues still. Junkertown, again, we mentioned that map is, I don't even want to talk about that map anymore. We just, for whatever reason, that's our Achilles heel. Route 66 might be our best escort map, or that may just because when we play on Route 66, it's been going up against teams that are obviously below what the Justice are as a team. So to me, that has to be a major highlight here going to the final quarter of the season, is we can't afford to drop hybrid and escort maps anymore. We have to win these. We have to get that map differential up because that is a tiebreaker. If we're going to be in the middle of the pack, we want the best seeding. We want to be able, if we do end up dropping games, we only want to drop it by 1. We don't want to drop by 3. We don't want to drop by 2. We only want to drop by 1. That is best worst case scenario, if you will, because we are in the middle of the pack. It is a dangerous spot to be in going into this part of the season. I do feel pretty confident they will qualify for playoffs, but this is a big key to ensure they qualify for playoffs, is fixing those escort maps.
Absolutely. And we'll roll through some of these other points. And John and I hit on this one a lot, so I won't spend too much extra time on this. But yeah, it's escort maps, and it's the escort portion of hybrid maps. It's been a constant struggle. You mentioned Junkertown. Rialto is another one we seem to get smashed on regularly. Hollywood does not go well for us after the capturing part of that particular map. So in the end, we got to find a way to escort, whether it be changing up the composition, running a few different heroes on the escort portion of these maps, whether it be changing the strategy around. Maybe they need to play corners a little bit more and just have one person sit back on the payload while the other ones push up around corners. Something needs to change because right now it just has not worked effectively for this team. They've had little glimpses, like you mentioned, Route 66 a couple weeks ago. They look pretty clean on there overall. It was a pretty good showing. They were able to push it pretty effectively. We had another Hollywood push where we did end up going to a tiebreaker where the Justice did push the complete way, which is something we really haven't seen too much from them so far this season. So we have some building blocks. We've made some improvements here and there. It just still doesn't seem like they're playoff ready, at least on escort and hybrid maps. So if you're going in as a Justice fan, I think the nice thing about this is, you're strong on control. You're strong on these other map types. It's purely these map types that your team needs to improve at. And the coaching staff knows that as well, as do the players. They're going to go in with that mentality and find ways to work through it.
Our second point to the playoffs here for the Washington Justice is adapting to the new meta. This goes back to the June Joust. The hero bans were announced on a Tuesday. The Justice played on a Thursday. That's a 2-day turnaround. I don't necessarily fault the Justice for having only 2 days to try to figure out what the meta is, where half this league got to sit back and watch week 1 play out and work on those metas. But again, being in the middle of the pack, trying to qualify for playoffs, with how tight the race is, can't afford to drop 1 or 2 matches the opening week here of the Summer Cup. Have to figure out what that meta is, and you have to do it quick. The good news is that the Justice don't play until Friday. So if they do announce it on a Tuesday again, they'll have 3 days to prepare, which I still think is ridiculous, and they need a longer time. I feel like the bans need to come out a week before. That way, we get the best version of Overwatch League we possibly can, instead of watching teams literally struggle trying to figure out what in the world this meta is going to be. That's what I would like to see. And I feel like that is going to be a big key going forward, because if you end up dropping those first 2 games because you can't figure out what that meta is, and you let some of these other teams that maybe are not in playoff contention right now, that may be a long shot, any slice of hope you give them, they're going to take. And again, Justice currently 5th overall in their conference, can't afford to drop maps, can't afford to drop games that are winnable just because they can't figure out the meta. It's a pro team. We know what this team's capable of. They're incredibly talented. They're incredibly intelligent when it comes to Overwatch. So I expect them to bounce back. I don't expect to see what we saw back in the June Joust, but nonetheless, it's a very big key to success going forward.
Yeah, and they weren't the only top team really to struggle in this area. The Houston Outlaws looked a little bit shaky after the bans came out for the June Joust. The Dallas Fuel, who are the top of the East, looked a little bit shaky here and there in a couple matchups. The San Francisco Shock, I believe, dropped a couple maps after those bans. So they're not the only team. They're a top team. Other top teams are affected. Like John said, the quick turnaround time is just very tough. imagine playing Overwatch. You're getting ready to go into a lobby a day later for just a semi-pro tournament or whatever, and someone's like, you can't play Zenyatta and Reinhardt. Reinhardt's so used on so many maps and so many compositions, and you get these heroes banned out. It's just a difference maker. Decay, most known for his Tracer, that got banned out. Sombra, we were using her very effectively in our compositions, banned out. So when you look at it overall, the Justice got hit. And I'm not going to say the Overwatch League was targeting the Justice, but it definitely felt that way. But that's what a lot of teams were playing in the meta at that point. A lot of these top teams were playing a lot of Sombra, a lot of Tracer, a lot of Reinhardt. In the end, it did affect them just as much as it did us. Just as Justice fans, it hurts a little bit more. But as John said, this is a big key for us getting that playoff spot, moving forward in the Countdown Cup. We need to find a way to come out strong and adapt to that meta quicker. Now, I don't know if the teams or the players know the meta a little bit more than we do as far as like when these hero bans come out, if it's just an official announcement from Overwatch League on whatever day and everyone finds out that day, or if the teams get a little bit of a heads up ahead of time. But regardless of that fact, we need to see the team adapt a little bit quicker than they did this past time.
Joey won't say it. I will. I feel like Blizzard's targeting the Justice. I'm joking. Our next key point, keeping Decay in. This was a very popular message back in the June Joust on the co-stream, Joey. It feels like, we opened up the show and everyone's like, where's Decay? Then the very next stream, why is Decay still not here? Every map, where's Decay? Put Decay in. Look, like, I get it. Decay is a very important player for this team, 100%. And I think in the June Joust, I don't think what the team did was wrong, especially with, again, how those bans felt like they targeted the Washington Justice, whether it was intentional or not. The Justice were playing the meta, and that's just what happened. And what we saw was Decay getting pulled for Jerry coming in, and Jerry's not a bad player at all. Like, he is very, very talented. In that meta, it better suited his champion, his hero pool, if you will, than it did Decay. Yes, it didn't work out. Yes, they went 0-2 the first week. Yes, it affected their placement in the June Joust. Decay came back in the next week, and they were able to bounce back a little bit. But going forward, again, that final push to the playoffs, this is not the time to make that push or to make that change. It's not that time to kind of gamble with your lineup. You have to stick with what you know works, with what has the best chemistry and the best teamwork, and that's going to be with Decay in the lineup. Doesn't mean you can't sub Jerry in for a map here and there, but Decay has to be your main DPS teamed up with Assassin going forward if you're going to try to make that final push into the playoffs to make a run like we saw this Justice team do a year ago. With a very talented roster, I think it's very, very capable, but Decay has to be a key to that success.
Absolutely. And you defended the team well. I think when it comes to June, they came in, they thought it was going to be more of a hit scan meta. They tried it out for a week. They stuck with it, which I give them honor for that. Some teams would change in between, and it didn't look bad. Again, they looked pretty promising on certain maps, on certain points. In the end, it wasn't enough to get the job done that week, though, so they did make the change later on the following week. Now, Decay, for me, I think I look at it beyond hero pool even. Decay is one of those players that really inspires confidence in the team, I feel like. When you look at his camera on stage, it feels like he's always talking, always communicating. So he brings more of those factors, in a sense, beyond just his mechanical prowess, which is phenomenal in and of itself, but just that teamwork, that communication. And again, not saying Tuba or Assassin or Jerry don't bring that to the table as fellow DPS players. I just think subbing Decay in and keeping him in is probably the play moving toward playoffs. And you can sub players back and forth, like you mentioned, John. Bring Jerry in for a map, that's fine. I think if Echo gets banned, we could see Assassin get put off for a few matches here and there, or a few games rather, because Echo being a big player or big hero rather for Assassin right now. Maybe if McCree doesn't get banned, you bring Jerry in a little bit more, or maybe a map calls for a Widowmaker, depending on what the map pool looks like. So there are ways to switch and mix and match DPS players here and there for the Justice. I mean, they have 4 very talented ones. Another one being Flex to support and Tuba here as well. And we'll touch on that next. But yeah, overall, I think Decay brings more than just his amazing mechanics to the table. I feel like he's a leader for that team, both on and off the maps that he plays on. I just think for the Justice's sake, as they push for a bit better seed, let's say, in playoffs, a higher seed, I think keeping Decay in more is going to be the way to go.
And then our final point is continuing to utilize Tuba. And this, I think, would have caught a lot of people off guard when it happened. Using Tuba as a flex support player, mainly for his Brig play, and I think it's an incredibly smart move. He's very, very talented on Brig. Now, assuming Brig doesn't get banned here going into the Summer Cup, this is something they need to continue to utilize. The meta may include Brig as a mainstay in that flex support position, and that's going to be an advantage that this Justice team has over these other teams, is having a player that is very well versed in playing Brig, very talented in playing Brig, has that DPS mindset, but is still able to support the team at the same time. We've seen Brig, be very effective all the way back in the GOATS meta. Whenever Brig is able to be brought back out this season with whatever comp a team is running, she's been incredibly talented in Overwatch as well. So this is definitely going to be a major wild card, and if they can continue to utilize a player like Tuba in that role, that's definitely a big advantage for the Justice to succeed.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on all the major points. It's just the fact that they have the ability to flex players in and out. This team is deep. We mentioned Jerry, Assassin, Decay. Then you have Tuba, who can flex DPS or support. Closer and Bebe getting the job done in support as well multiple times throughout this season in really clutch situations. But having Tuba in there, especially as someone who played a lot in that GOATS meta, who got his hands on Brigitte quite a bit throughout that season, he's able to flex that into a support pretty effectively. He knows how to play it aggressive too. So if the situation even calls for a bit more aggressive support play than normal, he's used to playing that from that DPS time as well. Now being able to switch back and forth, he's going to be one of those clutch people to bring in for certain maps. Maybe the Justice find themselves 0-2, backs against the wall. Maybe they make the change to put Tuba in. He's shown that he can come in and be a vital factor for this game. Again, nothing against Closer and Bebe. I think it just makes the Justice even more two-dimensional, or three-dimensional rather, having the ability to switch between those three supports as need be.
Absolutely. So Joey, we're by no means experts when it comes to Overwatch League, but I do like to think we have a very solid take on these key points here for the Justice going into that final stretch. Again, the Summer Cup kicking off not this week, but next week for the Washington Justice. It will be on the 30th. That is a Friday, 4:30 p.m. Is your next match against the Houston Outlaws. I mean, that's going to be a very tough challenge. Again, figuring out that meta, using Decay, figuring out the escort maps, and utilizing Tuba. Those are going to be 4 big points into taking down a very, very tough Outlaws team. Pardon me. So that is definitely something to look forward to. We'll be back there for the official co-stream on the Washington Justice YouTube channel as well. So definitely check that out as the Justice are tuning up here for the final push into the playoffs. And then with that, Joe, we're going to go ahead and transition to our other professional team here in the DMV that's currently in season, and that is WizDG, Wizards District Gaming, the defending champs so far. And Joey, this past weekend was the turn tournament for the NBA 2K League. The WizDG were the #1 overall seed based upon current standings and win percentage in the league. They are currently 14-4 in the regular season, a very impressive record. #1 in the Eastern Conference, #1 overall in the league. They had the #1 seed. So a very, very solid performance here. I got some things I want to start running here while we promo all of this. Of course, I don't have it up in time, and of course, as soon as you start playing the video, it starts playing sounds and everything else too before you can even get it on screen. But anywho, we'll go ahead and get that on there. So we're going to play a quick little recap video here while we talk about the WizDG and what they did in the turn tournament here. Joey, first off, being the #1 seed means you have the awesome advantage of playing the number 16 seed, which in this case was the matchup between Gen G Tigers and Celtics crossover. We both correctly predicted that Gen G was going to take that. Then for WizDG, it was a very easy sweep for the Gen G Tigers. They took them down 70-52 in game 1 and 76-63 in game 2. Now that doesn't go to really show how strong of a team Gen G really was for a 16 seed. WizDG had a very good performance against the Gen G Tigers. It really came in the second half that they really started to pull away. Up to that point, it was actually a fairly close game between the two of them. No knock to the Gen G Tigers there. Very, very solid organization and a good team. just going up against a really strong WizDG team known for strong offense and has the league's best defense. They just ran right into a buzzsaw. Okay, then with that, we will go ahead and go into the second round matchup, which was WizDG taking on Pistons GT, a familiar foe. If you're following along with the season, they just played in week 6. WizDG took it 2-0 in that series, so they're looking for history to repeat itself once again. That's exactly what happened. WizDG taking game 1 66-56, and then game 2 was 70-61. Pistons kept it a little bit closer. And again, something that's unique, and I forgot to touch on at the beginning of the segment, is that the turn tournament allows you to ban archetypes. So each position has 5 archetypes, and essentially game 1, each team gets 2 bans. So you're looking at 4 bans in total. Game 2, it's an additional 1 aside. So now you're up to 6 bans total. If it goes to a game 3, there's no additional bans. So you have that. So that's something big. They targeted Dayfry quite a bit, taking away his two-way facilitator, taking away, the high-scoring point guard archetypes as well. So it was something that affected a lot of teams, and it didn't really affect this WizDG team until later in the tournament. But for the quarterfinals, it was a nice 2-0 sweep over Pistons GT. So solid performance once again for WizDG, and that takes him into Saturday. Joe, did you want to follow up with anything with the first 2 rounds before we talk about the semis?
I was going to say with the first 2 rounds, it just felt like normal paperwork for the Washington or the Wizards District Gaming team, rather. They just rolled through them. Genji Tigers, really no competition for them. Pistons, same thing. It just seems like this was normal game schedule for the WizDG team. I just didn't really feel like they were tested at all in these first 2 rounds.
Well, they would be tested later on, and that came in the form of the semifinals, where they would go up against the number 13 seeded Blazer 5 Gaming of the Western Conference. And this is where things got a little interesting. Blazer 5 Gaming is a very solid team. They're just not performing well in the West at all. Number 13 overall, they have an 8-8 record, sitting there smack dab at 500. They're still trying to figure things out. They made a lot of trades in the offseason. They got rid of One Wild Walnut. There's a lot of things that affected this team in the offseason. So they're not exactly the same team that we saw in years past, but they're still a very strong team. We saw that in game 1, where they're able to take the win 74-67 over WizDG. And just to kind of give you a breakdown here real quick for WizDG scores, JBM, not really being affected too much by these archetype bans, still dropping 21 points, getting 9 assists. The big key here is not that Bierich got 18 points, just 1 point shy of tying his career high, but it's Dayfry. 11 points, 2 rebounds. If there's one big thing I can say about this WizDG team, Joey, it's that this team survives, not really survives, but thrives on second chance opportunities that Dayfry and Nudini can collect off the glass, whether it's on the defensive side or the offensive board. That is something that is absolutely crucial to this team. And Dayfry and Nudini were shut down in the paint. It was really the first time all season we've seen it. It was just not a good look. And that was really the big difference maker there in game 1.
Yeah, and as we roll into game 2, it's a very similar theme there as well. It just comes down to rebounds. Like you said, those second chance points, the ability for WizDG to recover that ball and have more opportunities to either put it in JBM's hands or for Dayfry to pop it back up. Nudini with those Dini daggers as well coming from the corner. In the end, not getting those rebounds is a huge difference maker for the offensive prowess of this WizDG team. They didn't come in game 1, and looking over to game 2, it doesn't look too pretty over there either.
Yeah, and game 1, also have to mention this. Bash, the point guard for Blazers, 37 points. 37 points in that first game. The league's number 1 defense was absolutely affected by by these archetype bans. It was probably one of the toughest games that WizDG have played so far this season, going head-to-head wise. So, it's really a testament to this Blazer 5 gaming team on how well they stacked up against WizDG with those archetype bans in effect as well. Joey, unfortunately for WizDG, the story comes to end here in the semifinals as they drop 2 straight. Game 2 going 72-67 in favor of Blazer 5 Gaming. Almost an identical score. It's only a 2-point difference. Blazer 5 only scored 2 points less. It was a little bit closer at halftime. WizDG went in with a 1-point lead, which was really nice. They had a slightly a bigger lead in the third quarter, but that fourth quarter, generally it's WizDG pulling away in the fourth quarter. Generally, it's them forcing those turnovers, getting those crucial rebounds, forcing the other team into mistakes. This fourth quarter, that script was flipped. And, again, shout out to Blazer 5 for the incredible matchup that they did, really shutting down WizDG there in the fourth quarter. It was really tough. But JBM still 23 points, 11 assists. B-Rich, 15 points. I can't say enough about B-Rich having been thrown into the mix here, playing in an off position, because he is a point guard by trade. Like that is the position he practiced as. That's the one that he qualified as going into the combine when he was drafted back in season 3. Playing shooting guard, it is a very different role in this team. And he's adapted quite well. I think a lot of NBA 2K League teams would kill to have a shooting guard that is almost guaranteed 15 to 19 points a game. It's a great secondary score. Nudini, 10 and 5. Dayfry, a lot better here in the second game. 17 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Again, the big difference is they just weren't able to keep up there in the fourth quarter. And again, Blazer 5, I mean, they earned it. They played tough, and then they knocked a tough WizDG team out.
I think part of this just goes to how good of a player Dayfry is. We look at a stat line like 17 and 9. That's a great stat line. But Dayfry is a player who averages a double-double when it comes to rebounds as well, isn't he, John? I just feel like he's just a constant threat in that paint. And while putting up 9 is great, it's still a little bit shy of that average we expect from him just because he is that good of a player. So in the end, just not able to keep up as a team in scoring with this Blazer 5 team, but also just slightly behind a few of the stats that we usually see a little bit higher for the squad as well.
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, the tournament didn't go as well as everyone expected. A lot of people had WizDG winning the whole thing, myself included. Not just because I'm a homer, just because stat-wise, it just seemed very improbable. And really, when you took a look at this entire bracket of the turn, you're looking at some major upsets here. You have Jazz Gaming taking down Memphis. You have Pacers Gaming, the number 2 team in the entire league, losing to Heat Check Gaming in the first round as well. It was just a very it felt like a March Madness tournament, with a lot of upsets. Again, Pistons taking down Warriors Gaming. Warriors Gaming were the runners up last year in the finals. That's the team that WizDG beat 3-1 in the finals to secure the championship. They're still a very powerful team. Pistons took them down in that 9-8 matchup. That's an upset. Blazer 5 taking down the T-Wolves, who are off to a hot start in the season. Kind of cooled off a little bit, but still a very tough team as well. Took them down. It just overall, it was a very topsy-turvy kind of tournament here for the turn. But overall, I thought it was very good. We saw a lot of great NBA 2K League action here. And as you can see there, Blazer 5 would go on to lose in the finals to one of the hottest teams I have seen in a very long time, Hornets Venom Gaming, or GT, I believe it is. They came in and they were absolutely hot. They did not drop a single game since the one game they lost in the very first round against Knicks Gaming. Everything else was a clean 2-0 sweep, and the final was a 3-0 sweep. Very impressive team. Hornets Venom is a team that you're going to have to watch out for here in the final 4 weeks of the NBA 2K League. They're looking to make a late push, and I think they could actually do it.
Yeah, a lot of buzz around this Hornets team after this tournament. I think they could really sting up some of the standings, John, as they go forward. Just as you said, bringing that momentum from the turn. Now they have this nice prize pool. They're feeling good about themselves. Their gameplay looked really strong throughout pretty much the entirety of the tournament overall. Bringing that into the final part of the season is really good for momentum.
Absolutely. So let's take a quick look at the current standings here real quick, as we are close to just wrapping this whole thing up. Again, a little bit lighter on the news here just because, it is a bye week for both of these teams. But just to give you a quick picture here. WizDG, again, currently in first place overall in the Eastern Conference. Number 1 in the entire league, 14-4 with almost an 80% win average. A very, very solid season for WizDG and the defending champs again. And then right behind them, that really, really scary Hornets Venom GT team. They're 3 games back. It's, you know, or actually 2 games back is what it says here. Looks like, yeah, because WizGG have played a couple more games. So 2 games back. Hornets Venom. This is all going up based upon win percentage. So that's where that's really coming from. Hornets Venom is going to make a strong second half push. They have a very interesting schedule going forward, and they have a chance to do it. WizDG are going to have to be on their toes. But I like where they stand currently overall in the standings. Number 1 in the East, number 1 in the league. And I think they're poised to finish out the season strong. Okay, so with that, the next game for WizDG is going to be coming all the way in week 8. So like the Justice, they do not have a match this week. July 28th will be their next match against Heat Check Gaming. And then, of course, it's going to be what the league keeps dubbing a rivalry match. And I really don't think it's a rivalry because I feel like both teams have to be competitive in it. WizDG going up against Mavs Gaming, which is the team that Dayfry was originally drafted by. Going up against Dimes, who's a very good player as well. But Dayfry pretty much owns Dimes and the Mavericks ever since he came over to WizDG back in Season 2. Keep calling it a rivalry if you want. I just don't see it because WizDG gets the better of them almost every single time. They did earlier this year. So I'm not too worried about that matchup. That Heat Check Gaming matchup, Joe, I think is going to be the more interesting one just based upon what we saw from the turn with them upsetting Pacers Gaming. Again, there's not going to be any archetype bans here in the regular season, but still you have to give them credit where credit's due, taking down a tough Pacers team.
Yeah, I think the archetype bans not being there is going to play in favor of WizDG, though. So I do expect WizDG to come up pretty clean. I think it will be a 2-0, but like you said, they took down Pacers. They surprised a lot of people in the turn, so you never know in the end. As far as just to touch on a little bit with the Washington versus Dallas rivalry, I think that's part of it as well. It goes beyond just Dayfry moving from Dallas up to Washington. I think it also hits back on if you pretty much look at any other sport, the NFL with the Redskins and the Cowboys, just about any sport you want to pick out, there's some kind of Washington-Dallas rivalry. So I think that's the NBA trying to play that league or that really head-to-head rivalry into the NBA 2K League as well.
It's just Dallas isn't competitive. That's all I'm trying to say.
Not in the NBA 2K League, at least right now, especially up against a top-tier team like WizDG.
All right. So before we wrap up the show here, Joey, we do have a couple announcements here coming up. One of the big things we talked about when we relaunched the show was wanting to bring on people in the local esports scene from WizDG, from the Washington Justice, from DC United, and then the big esport events here in the DMV as well, and kind of give you guys that behind the scenes access to the players, the coaches, the management for all these organizations. So we do have our first 2 interviews secured. The first one, Joey, will be coming up on the 26th of July. Who's it going to be?
The first one is going to be Supreme, the head coach of the Washington Justice. One other thing with these, though, these dates are tentative, guys. So things can shift here and there potentially, but at least at the moment, these are the planned dates being scheduled for us.
So that is going to be really cool, getting Supreme on there on the 26th. Again, tentatively. Everything right now, fingers crossed, looks good for that date for that interview. So we'll get them the week of the summer cup for the Washington Justice, and we'll get more information on the man behind the Washington Justice, Supreme himself, and also his take on the current season and the final push in Overwatch. And then Joey, I'm really excited for this next one. Also, King CJ, EMLS player for DC United, will be coming on the show as well. And that one's going to be a little interesting of an interview just because of the current situation that we have with them.
Absolutely, guys. That one is probably going to be pre-recorded as King CJ will be tuning in from South Africa for that interview. But really excited to dive into what it's been like playing as an EMLS player under DC United, qualifying for the eFIFA World Cup as well. Lots of great stuff happening for DC United in that scene as well as for King CJ. So we're looking forward to having him on to chat about it in front of you guys.
It is going to be absolutely fantastic. And that is only just the water, or not barely the water under the bridge. We're planning on overflowing the bridge with a lot more interviews here on Game on DC, but just to tease a few there for you as well. So those interviews will be coming up here soon. But until that next interview, that is going to do it for this week's edition of Game on DC. If you do enjoy Game on DC, we would love to hear from you. Leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and anywhere else you can find the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. We would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media as well as Twitch for all your gaming and esports needs here in the DMV. Joey, where can the listeners and viewers go to follow Game on DC?
Absolutely, listeners, head on over to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and find us at Game on DC. In addition to that, you can follow us on YouTube and Twitch as well at OTN Media. On Twitch, it's twitch.tv/OTN Media. Last but not least, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that about the show, things you want us to feature on here, interviews you want us to have, go ahead and hit us up either with a direct message on Twitch, or on Twitter rather, or using hashtag GoDC.
All right, make sure you tune in next Monday, July 26th, as we continue to cover the esports news here in the DMV. Do your ears and eyes a favor, hit that sub and follow button to know when the next edition of Game on DC is ready for your viewing and listening pleasures. We'll catch you all on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and as always,
Game on DC.